All right, everyone, welcome to the Game Changers Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, and each and every week we do this show with people who are changing the game all over the country. And this week on the show, we have Casey Gregerson. Casey, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
man. So, for the people who don't know you, could you share a little bit about how you got into the real estate business and how that's led you to where you are today?
You bet. So maybe a not as traditional path, but then again, I feel like we're all pretty unique in how we get here. My degree is actually in petroleum engineering, which I
Hmm.
use none of today. Right, it's super useful right now doing real estate deals and syndications and buying multifamily and fix and flip. Although it did help me like project management wise, I find a lot of times when I'm doing a lot of my fix and flips, I use a lot of the stuff that. So I guess to explain it, I started working full time for Shell in 2012 in Houston. But
Hmm.
rewinding a little bit more, I grew up in Wyoming, right? That's what makes me a little bit unique too. And when people are always like, well, why do you live in Houston, but you invest in Wyoming? Well, I grew up in Wyoming, lived there my first until all the way through high school. Went to undergrad in Montana and played college football for 4 years, which was fun. Enjoyed that, but eventually had to hang up the cleats and went to grad school at Wyoming, the University of Wyoming, for petroleum engineering. And anyway, that's what landed me in at Shell in 2012 here in Houston, working in oil and gas. And yeah, so I did that. I wrote out my W-2 for 12 years, right? While I was hustling, majority of that time I was hustling, working, doing real estate deals. And I had it was a really cool gig, right? So I would go work out on a rig for 2 weeks. Like if you guys have seen the show Landman, like that is like literally, if you've seen that, that was my life. I would go out there like in the field, and it's just so much. It's so funny because I watched that series with my wife and my kids, and actually my kids were like wanting to watch it. I'm like, sorry guys, this a little bit above your age, right? But it's cool for them to see like what dad like experienced every day. So picture that I'm out there in West Texas, but I work for 2 weeks on a rig, but then I'd have 2 weeks off. So when I got off for those 2 weeks, I didn't even have to open a cell phone or a work computer, do anything for Shell. I could just do my own thing. So that's when I started
Hmm.
buying rentals, right? House hacking, like so many other people. It was like me and my wife bought our first house that we house hacked, fixed it up, sold it for more, bought the next one, and then I started doing that with rentals. And anyway, I was able to really maximize that schedule to where I worked half the year and had paid time off. And the biggest thing though, honestly, Mike, was I started working with small banks early on, and I started building
Hmm.
relationships with them, right? And because I had everything they wanted, right? I had a strong W-2 income, right?
Hmm.
Once I did a couple of projects, I now had a track record, and I could go show them like, hey, here are these rentals I bought and fixed up, and here's how they're performing. So I just kept leveraging that and building it and building it. And that's why I kept honestly, one of the biggest reasons I kept my W-2 so long was because I was getting great financing terms, right? Like everyone else is
Hmm.
having to go out and fund stuff with all hard money. Like just one little story. I always tell this one. In Wyoming, I was buying this duplex, and my seller he had a 1031 exchange that he had to meet, and he came through our marketing, and he's like, "Hey, I'll sell this house to you at like 40,000 less than what it's worth if you can close in basically 10 days." And it was like, because he was like, I'm going to pay that in capital gains if I don't 1031, but if you can buy it, I'm already going to buy this house. So if I got to discount this other one to properly 1031, then I'll sell it to you. And most
Hmm.
people would be like, 10 days, I got to have cash. How am I going to do that? Well, because I'd been working with these small banks, I called up, it was Jonah Bank here in Wyoming. And I'm like, hey, I got 10 days. It's a duplex in Cheyenne. It's like straightforward, great money maker, going to cash flow. We're getting it at a discount. I'm like, can we close this in 10 days? She's like, well, let me see what I can do. And literally, we closed with a bank in 10 days and pretty
Huh.
much like the same way you would close with like hard money or cash. So anyway, I built those relationships, and that's honestly, that's one of the best things I did. It really kind of helped me run and build out my portfolio.
Are you still using a lot of those smaller bank relationships today for your financing?
Oh yeah, 100%. Right. Like again, I'm part of these, like I'm part of Collective Genius and some of these other high level real estate masterminds. And like one of the big ones are like, you get to work with Kiavi, and Kiavi is one of the best hard money lenders, and they can do like no money down. But they just can't compete with the local banks if you have the right relationships. Again, I'm not talking to the mortgage broker. I'm talking to the commercial guy that knows me, and
Mm.
they can close almost as fast as hard money. They do the same. The appraisal process is almost just as easy, and they know me, and it's just an easier process. And now instead of paying hard money rates where I'm paying whatever 2 or 3% points, 12+%, I'm borrowing at 1% origination fee and 7% right now, right? And so it's
Ah,
like, why would I have to go use hard money? So absolutely, still today, like even though I don't have my W-2, but I built up that track record and my balance sheet enough over the years to where now, honestly, all my fix and flips, if I'm the majority of them, unless I'm taking over like a loan sub two, which I do with my rehab method, and I'll take it over sub two and I'll fund the rehab with like a private money lender. If it's not that scenario, I'm going to go use a small bank and we're going to use that to fix and flip it.
even for the short-term debt, they'll do it with a
Yeah.
small bank.
Oh yeah. Like, and I'll
Wow.
just do like 12 months interest only. And I think it's still cheaper. And here's the thing though, Mike, because you know what I like is when I go do this, let's say that, and again, we live and learn, right? We all learn through our battle scars. I've learned that when you go fix and flip, if if you're fixing and flipping at a high enough price point, you've only got one exit. And if you miss on your ARV, you miss on rehab. But if that thing doesn't sell, you've got one option: drop the price and drop and drop and drop until you find a buyer. Right? What I like about these, when I finance it with a small bank, I've already got my financing pretty much locked in to where if it doesn't sell and the market's a little soft, or maybe I list it in August and it just, in Wyoming, sometimes you have a lull from like August till springtime. Like I can hang on to it and I can rent it out and hold it, and I don't have to go refinance everything. Right. So
Mm,
I've got my second option sort of built in.
gotcha. Okay. When did you, I know it was 12 years, but what made you finally decide to jump full time into the real estate business?
Yeah, man, I thought about it for years, Mike, and I talked to different mentors and trying to figure out when the right time was. I thought it was early on. I thought it was like 2017, 2018. We were in Dallas,
Mm,
Fort Worth, and we were doing the burst strategy really effectively. We were buying houses, fixing them up, refinancing them, getting all our money back, and repeating it. Right? We're like, all right, we got this thing. I was like, this is now. I'm okay. I'm ready. I want to be home all the time, be able to do what I want with my kids, but I wasn't ready. That was like it was probably 2018, 2019, and found out we basically had a tough batch of contractors. Properties didn't sell. Back to those lessons that I was just talking to you about. I was learning them the hard way right then. Thought I was ready to leave my W-2, but I wasn't ready. So
mhm,
anyway, we made it through that one. I literally had to like sell. I basically had to sell half of a franchise that we had built up and owned. It was really profitable, and fortunately, I had that asset. I was able to sell that, pay back all my PMLs, all the hard money lenders, get out of that, and kind of press the restart button. And
mm,
anyway, I moved back to Houston in 2020, kind of got going, rebuilt things, started just really focusing on Wyoming and Montana, where I was seeing just really good deal flow with low competition. And
mm,
anyway, to answer your question, I what it came down to, and this is now really my true passion and vision, and like what really gets me excited every day, was spending time. Well, here's how I word it, Mike. It's like I want to help other people with this, but I finally answered it for myself when I could choose family over work, right? And I want to help other people make the same decision, but I
mm,
finally had that decision, and here's when it clicks, right? I'm working that same schedule, which is even better now. All right. So I told you I was 2 weeks in the field, like in West Texas, but I had
mhm,
a gig right before I left where I was actually 3 weeks working and then 3 weeks off. Right. But my 3 weeks were right down the street. So I'm pointing behind me here in Houston. I could drive to the office, be home every night, and I'd work a 12-hour shift in the office. Right. I was actually monitoring like wells out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And I was doing that for 12 hours a day. And then I'd have be home for 12 hours and I'd do that 21 days and then I'd be off for 3 weeks. And I was like working on my real estate stuff, building. I'm like, this is perfect. But, but I couldn't be there. Like I would go in at 2 p.m. in the afternoon as my shift started and I get off at 2 a.m. So at this point I got three little boys, right? And I got a fourth one on the way. And like by the time I get home, it's 2 a.m. They're already asleep. By the time I wake up at like 9, they just get like 7 hours of sleep, if that. they're already gone to school. So I'm missing everything. I'm missing all their sports. And I'll never forget it. Like, never forget this moment. It was after coaching one of my son's little league games and just having a blast, right? Just being out there watching him and being able to be his coach out there. And we're driving home with my wife, and I'm about to start my next 21 days. And I'm like, I don't want to miss, I can't miss any more of these games. Like, he's only young once, right? And so I'm having this realization. I'm finally like, I built this up. I've been working hard in real estate. I've got my off ramp to go. And I just had this clarity, and I've got it from reading books. And I try to share it with other people too, if not thinking this way. But I'm like, and I'm just, my wife's sitting right next to me here in the car. And I'm like, Annie, I don't want to go. I know when I'm on my deathbed, if I look back at this moment, I'm not going to be like, I'm glad that I played it safe to keep that job a little bit longer. And I missed all those games, right? Missed all those memories.
Mhm.
And I just it gave me ultimate clarity. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I've built this up big enough, and I'm going to choose, right? Today is the day I'm going to choose family over real estate. So I didn't walk
Mm.
in and quit. I just did the whole kind of quiet quitting, and I just kept doing them. But I told my boss, I'm like, you either rebook me so I can be there for my kids' games, or I'm going to be there for my kids' games. But I made that decision right then and there. And I told my wife, I'm
Mhm.
like, if I get fired for this, like, I can live with that. I can live with when my kids get older. They know why dad left his job and why he was fired from his job was so he could be there for their kids' games. So sorry, it's a long story, but it's probably one of my biggest passions and why I love this so much.
Yeah. So did they end up firing you, or did you end up quitting?
They did. Yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
did.
So I told him, I'm like, I kept saying, rebook me, schedule me. Cause if I could have just worked from 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. and I could have still made all the stuff. Would have been lacking some sleep, but I was like, I'll make that work. But they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't
Mm.
anyway, he didn't care. So I'm like, all right, I'm going. So I would get caught up and cover my stuff, and then I would go to the game. And then eventually they weren't happy with that and let me go.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
one of the most liberating days ever, right? Right. I
Yeah.
get let go. I get escorted off of, this is a good story too for another day, but I get escorted off the Shell campus. And that night I had my son's scrimmage, and I just got back from a Bigger Pockets convention. All right.
Uh-huh.
Like on this real estate high. And I'm like, all right, I got to go back to work tonight, and I got to figure out how am I going to get to my son's scrimmage that I'm the head coach of. I'm like, how am I going to make all this work? Well, I go in there, they let me go, and they're escorting me out. I'm like, hell yeah. I got all this stress behind me. I can go to my son's scrimmage. And the next week, I actually had my first ever Collective Genius event, which is a mastermind I've been part of for like 3 years. And I was
Uh-huh.
trying to figure out, and my boss wouldn't give me the time off. And I'm like, I'm going to this event, like whether you liked it or not, but I'm not sure how we're going to work this out. But anyway, it's like, it was so freeing. It's like, all right, now's the time.
Yeah.
Go
I
do
like
what I'm
it.
supposed to do.
And then we were talking a little bit offline about how, well, actually, let's talk first, because you said you live, you're in Houston, but you invest in Wyoming. So, like, how do you run that business when you're in a totally different area of the country?
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it. I mean, the short answer is I've been doing it forever. Where I
Mm.
lived here in Houston, and I mean, okay, so I would never advise somebody to just go pick a spot on the map and be like, I like the market looks really strong in the Midwest, right? Midwest, you get great cash flow. I'm going to go buy a property in St. Louis, Missouri, or wherever it is, right? I would never recommend somebody not doing that with like some background and like contacts. Like, just that's not what I did, right? I grew up in Wyoming. I knew the market.
Hmm.
But once I moved away, I still had those contacts, and I would still go up there and visit, right? And so now today, I've been able to build out teams, right? So the way our company works
Mm.
is I work with a dedicated real estate agent in every city that we're doing deals in, from like Cheyenne up north to Sheridan to Cody to Southwest Wyoming to Casper, Gillette, even up into Montana. I've got a dedicated agent in every market that will go
Mm.
walk every property I have, right? So this helps me. This might surprise you. All my acquisitions, 100% virtual, right? Every deal
Mhm.
we're negotiating, my acquisition guys, I've got a guy in San Diego, a guy in North Carolina, guy down at Dallas Fort Worth. Like, they're all over the country. Atlanta, they're doing the deals on the phone, and then when they get something, like, okay, this is a deal, we try to actually wrap it up without even seeing it. If everything looks and checks out, we check the photos, right? But then the
Mhm.
next step is we'll go send our boots on the ground is our agent. So that agent goes and
Mm.
walks it. They verify it. They give us a scope. They give us the ARVs. And in turn, they get to list all of our flips. There's also a lot of deals, as you probably know, like there's a lot of deals where as you as the wholesaler or the fix and flipper, like this seller really just needs to go sell their house on the market, right? That's their best bet. So then I
Hmm.
just hand that off in a nice silver platter to that agent who already walked it and got to know him. So it works really good. So that's part one. And part two is once I got enough rentals and enough fix and flips going, I started hiring internal contractors, right? I still use GCs to fill in where I need, but I was like, as soon as I got enough deals flow, I'm going to hire my own guy that just does my stuff, right? So
Mm.
now we can go if I need repairs done, if I need now once I'm under contract, I send that guy over there and he's going to give me the detailed scope. And it's a huge game changer. So I haven't shared this yet, but I own 400 units across our portfolio.
Hmm.
And the way I'm able to do that is I've got actually, which is a whole nother thing we can talk about if you want, but I do all my property management virtually. It's people in
Hmm.
Mexico and okay, I'll just give you it in 15 seconds. But you asked me
Yeah.
like, how do you do it from Houston if it's up in Wyoming? Well, I asked myself the same question. I'm like,
Hmm.
if I'm here managing at the time, it was like 10 units it's during COVID, right? Right during COVID, we're all locked down. And I asked myself, I'm like, if I can manage 10 to 20 units and not a single one of them are here in Houston, like, why can I not train a virtual assistant to do that same job? So
Hmm.
that's exactly what I did. I trained them. I now have 3 guys managing 400 units. And then they just coordinate to finish the story. They coordinate with the contractors, boots on the ground to go make repairs. And anyway, that's how we put it all together.
Yep. So let's talk about that. We do a lot of virtual hiring too. So people always say it's more challenging to build a virtual sales team. So how do you go about hiring your acquisitions people and ensuring that they're going to be able to perform?
Man, such a good question, Mike. I've been iterating that for years, right? Initially I try to find like local people because I'm like, all right, I want to find a local person who can go shake and go, but like they say, go belly to belly with the seller.
Hmm.
But what I found was that was a limited talent pool. And honestly, another big differentiator we have in Wyoming is like there's just the labor force is just limited there, especially with contractors, but even in like really good salespeople, right? And my
Mm.
big differentiator is like I operate again. I grew up in Wyoming, but now I live in Houston, and I'm part of like bigger communities, and I get to see like technology and innovation and
Hmm.
everything. I'm like, well, again, a funny thing about Wyoming, if you didn't know this, Wyoming is like 20 years behind the rest of the country.
Okay.
No joke, right? Like literally, if you go up there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And people who are listening to this today have been to like places like Wyoming, and it's like so slow and just like, yeah. Anyway, but people like that, right? That's why they love living there. Okay, but
Sure.
I operate on a different speed, so I'm trying to hire those people locally to run at my speed. It wasn't working, so
Yeah.
what I did started finding virtual people. And another kind of breakthrough I had was I had virtual sales guys, and I was recruiting and finding
Hmm.
people from Indeed and I'm trying to think of some of our other hires. Yeah, it was mainly from coming from Indeed, and we're interviewing them, and they
Yeah.
were working out right. They were 100% commission, but I do so much creative deal stuff. Where when I say creative, I mean like seller negotiating with the seller to hold it and get him to carry back part of the mortgage, or maybe he carries
Mm.
all of it, or maybe I take over his loan because he's got a 2.5% rate that is like gold right now, and then I go give him some money and then I take over his loan, right? We do a ton of these creative situations. And
Uh-huh.
what I was trying to do is I was trying to teach my acquisition guys to think like I think, right? Because I'm always like, I look at a deal from like, I've got like 10 different tools in my tool belt and
Yeah.
spinning in my brain, right? And trying to standardize that. And with the sales team, I was like, I couldn't do it. So
Mm.
what I finally found though was I started recruiting so I'm a big part of Pace Morby's community, his sub 2
Mhm.
community. I'm also part of his owners club, which is a more select hire group. And what I found was that community would fundamentally understand creative finance and how to think creatively. So what I've done, and this
Mm.
has been my secret sauce, is now I'm more of a leader in that community. I give these students an opportunity to come in, and I start them off as just like lead manager or cold callers. But the ones that really get it and they've got potential, those are the guys I bring on and I train them up, and eventually they become acquisition guys. Right. And now they
Mm.
already know how to think creatively, and they're used to working off 100% commission, right? Because they're betting on themselves, and man, it's been the perfect blend because these guys think
Huh.
creatively. They don't give me a bunch of overhead. They only eat what they kill, and they're used to
Mm.
that. And yeah, that's been the secret sauce. And I'm just trying to now. My goal is just to kind of keep that pipeline going and give more people more opportunities.
So you have people like that. Are you giving them leads, or are you just showing them how to go and source leads, or how does it work on that end?
It's a little bit of both, but the quick answer is I'm providing all the leads, right? I
Okay.
go do a ton of direct mail.
Hmm.
See, we do a little bit of radio and Facebook, and then obviously our SEO and website stuff. Those
Hmm.
are our main marketing, and we do texting and cold calling. All right, but I'll
Hmm.
hand them the leads. They're going to close them, right? But again, my guy that first comes in, he's going to be cold calling and just trying to generate leads, right? But the guys that work themselves up, I'm going to give them, hey, now here are the qualified leads that have already been qualified. I hand off to you, right?
Hmm.
But now the second part of that question was, now I'm working on people who are just want to bring, I'm like, hey, if you could just bring deals to me and that I can close, we just call it being a bird dog, right? Go be a bird dog. Here's my buy box. Here's what I'm looking for. And then I'll just pay them a flat fee for something I can close.
Yeah. So are those people the ones you're sourcing and you're kind of moving them up to the ranks? Are they working full time for you, or are they also like trying to do their own thing as well?
Yeah. I mean, that's the only, as you could say, that could be a perceived downside, but yeah, none of them, this is their own. That I'm very clear too, right? Because our sales
Yeah.
cycle in Wyoming, again, we love it because like we just feel like whenever and the funny thing is I've been seeing it for years. Okay, by the way, like I used to be part of the first place I ever learned how to do wholesaling was REI Game Changers, right? And I love your show with Game Changers, right? But I
Okay.
learned from the REI Game Changers, right? They showed me how to wholesale. But I remember when I showed them my numbers and I'm like, look, this is the ROI I was getting based on if I spent $5,000 on direct mail, I was getting like a 10-to-1 return. And when I was showing them what I was getting compared to all my peers, it was like off the charts in Wyoming, right? Because I was originally thinking about, I lived in Houston. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to figure out Wyoming first, and then I'll do Houston. They're like, you could do that, Casey, but your numbers are way better in Wyoming than anyone else's here. And it's a completely different animal in a big market like Houston or Salt Lake City
Mm.
or Denver or Atlanta, right? So like keep milking that, keep squeezing everything you can get out of that. So that's what I've just kind of found to this day is like we just continue to like our marketing and our dollars go so much farther up there. And
Huh.
yeah, it's just it's that's why we just continue to double down on it. And yeah, but where I was going with that was the sales cycle, right? The only downside is our sales cycle takes a while, right? From the time we get a lead, it's just slow, right?
Uh,
Again, Wyoming's slow. Like these sellers, like we very rarely do I run into a person like, hey, I need help today or tomorrow. Or I'm going to be foreclosed on next week. We got to make this happen. It's like a 12 to 24 months sometimes of follow up before these leads kind of finally convert. So for my sales guys, they're sometimes not getting paid till 6, 12, 18 months into the deal, right? Into the
mm.
role. I tell them, I'm like, I don't want you to come, like, definitely do not quit your job and come do this, right? I'll make it work to where you can work both jobs, you can learn and just kind of keep it going,
Wow.
right? And then they
Yeah.
start stock, right? But once they get going, like guys now I've had for 6 months with me, 12 months, now their deals are constantly hitting, right? But they kind of got that
Sure.
runway that they got to start with.
Yeah. And then you said you built out your property management team, except the on the ground people, pretty much all virtually too. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, the first one was a VA that I paid a headhunter. Like, I mean, the first one, fortunately, I did two, right? If I had just done one and stopped, it'd be a lot different story. But luckily I hired two. The first one was brutal, man. He took advantage of me and was like not working. And anyway, and to this day, we now use Time Doctor where you have to record your screen, right? Which is a cool tool to make sure they're actually working. But anyway, he was not good. But my second one was great. And what I did is just like as I mentioned, I was doing it myself. And I
Mm.
worked at Shell. I worked like Shell was always about SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. Like as soon as we got something down, as soon as we started drilling wells at a certain price and it was the same, it was repeatable. All right, now how do we go build out the SOP? So that's what I did. I was managing rental properties, and from I mean, literally the entire process from like, you got a new property. Let's go get photos. Let's set up
Mm,
the listing, right? Let's set up the description. Let's start taking in applications. Well, first off, let's post it to Facebook, Zillow, all these places. Now let's take applications. Now let's screen them, right? And that was a big thing. That's like, you got
mm,
to, if you nail that down, like that's a big differentiator, I think, in property management is proper
sure.
screening, right? So I taught him how to do that, which all that just came from Brandon Turner's book, right? I read Brandon Turner's book about how to manage rental properties with him and his wife, like probably 10 years ago now. I literally, he gave you a lot of the best practices and I just adopted that, implemented it. And yeah, and so I just built out this entire system. And now I built out the SOPs. I wrote them down the first time, but now they just iterate them. I train them on it. But now each time the new property manager comes in, I've got my more senior VA who trains them and they show them the
Hmm.
process, right? And then they keep iterating. So it's been pretty cool, man. I'm just, yeah, it's one of my more proud things we've built because, like, for example, we've taken on some big multifamilies that are in major
Hmm.
distress and just complete like crap show. And you get in there and you immediately see it how they're managing it. You're like, oh my gosh, like were they doing
Yeah.
any tenant screening? Or if you had a pulse, they were like, and you could pay I mean, sometimes they didn't even pay the deposit. They were like, anyway, it was just wild the people they're letting in. But once you started to implement a process, and I'm just really cool that now my team's trained up enough to where we can go take on a big multifamily asset and just run our process, which is just so much more efficient than most other
Mm,
companies do. And I've just found that now, right? Because typically I'll go buy a multifamily fixed up force value with construction, right? And renovation.
mhm.
But now I found, hell, we can just go find something that's just not properly managed and put in
Ah,
good tenant screening and do these little simple things. And oh my gosh, I just bought a 120 unit. They were on paper leases. They didn't even have electronic leases. They didn't even have an electronic payment system other than Venmo and Zelle. I'm like, holy shit. I stopped doing that 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But I'm just realizing that's another just untapped potential that we're able to see in our markets where just come in and operate it better, you know?
yeah. Are you buying across the entire state of Wyoming or only within like specific areas?
Yeah, we'll do. That's the only thing. There are a total of 500,000 people in the entire state of Wyoming. So that'll
Really?
blow a lot of minds. Yeah,
Okay.
500,000. So by maybe, yeah, by we're forced to do the entire state to make the volume work, right? But we do Montana and then we do some of the surrounding states. But it works good because again,
Yeah.
because I've got contractors and we find some of our best deals. Like I just flipped a house in Grable, Wyoming, population of like, I don't know, maybe 2,300 people. I'm not even sure. I'm just guessing. Right. But
Ah,
this house was no one else was going to come in and renovate this house because it's just a small town and it's hard to find contractors. But I bought the house for $20,000, which you don't, I mean, in the Midwest, you hear that, but you don't hear much of that in Wyoming, Montana. But we bought
mhm,
it for 20, put like 80 into it and sold it for 150. And it was still a great deal, which you're not finding that deal in Laramie or Cheyenne or Sheridan or one of these bigger towns in Wyoming that are a lot more demand. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
that's some of the ups, the pros and the cons of the whole state is you get some one-off deals, but honestly, we like those. We just got to buy them deeper, but we are literally their only option for
Yeah.
that person to sell that house.
Besides like just buying it deeper, like how are you looking at that deal differently if you're buying it out like in a 2,300 person town versus, I don't know how people live in Cheyenne, but I'm assuming maybe 100,000.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're about right. So it's actually a good point to mention the revive method that I do. So if it's
Mhm,
so small and I gotta fix and flip it, I ultimately I partner with the seller. I'm like, hey, because I think your biggest thing you can't predict is the market and how long that house is gonna sit, right? But
mhm,
also, I mean, if there's still jobs there and I know I'm gonna fix it up, I know my product is gonna be way nicer than anyone else at that price point. So let's talk about that one house, right? Like we
mhm,
renovated it, we listed it around 160, 170,000. And like you're not
mhm,
finding anything for that price that's actually remodeled.
mm,
So that's one way. Like if I'm at a low enough price point, like I'm okay because like there's still it's gonna sit a little bit longer. But so one answer is I'm gonna plan for longer holding times. But
mhm,
my favorite answer though is the revive method. So on the revive method, I partner with the seller and I make sure that the profit share happens on the back end once we sold the house. That way I'm protected in case back to, I told the story earlier, right? In case we find a house that won't sell and now we just got to keep dropping. And instead of that, me like I had this realization like a month ago. And I'm thinking and you probably get it, right, Mike? Like as a fix it flipper, the worst feeling is you get a fix it flip finally done. You list it on the market. It's all fixed up. You took care of all those headaches with the contractors, right? You finally got to the finish line and you list it and crickets, right? No offers. You're getting showings, but no offers. After week 2, not as many showings and still no offers. After week 3, 4, now you don't have any showings. You're like, oh man, what do I do? I literally messed it up. I messed up the ARV or something happened. I got to drop my price. And now quickly it's amazing how fast that $50,000 flip that you underwrote is now getting ate up every single week. Right.
Yeah.
No, so that's why I structure it to where, hey, I'm going to partner with the seller. And if I got to do that, it's ultimately a lot of times it's coming out of their pocket. Right. But at the end of the day, though, I'm still bringing them value because if it goes as planned and the market stays where we think it should, like they should make more money. There's no guarantees, right? They're partnering with me. So I like that because in a small town, if it doesn't sell, I'll find the bottom, right? But at least I'm not finding the bottom and now I'm taking a big loss.
Yeah. So tell me about how that, like the mechanics of that work. Like, let's pretend I'm a seller. Let's pretend I'm a seller who's kind of technical, so you can actually explain it to me. Like how does it work? Like the partnering with them, and who's paying for the renovations, and how's it getting split? Like how does that all work?
Yes. So I break it all down into a spreadsheet for them. A very simple. Let's call it a table, just in case somebody gets overwhelmed by a spreadsheet and they're not nerds like me and you, right? But I give them because all the variables, the one variable I don't know is my sale price, right? So I'll give them a low, medium, and a high. Sometimes I'll even give them 4 different scenarios of like from low all the way to high. I'm like, hey, here are different ranges of prices. And based on that price point, here is the profit share. Okay. And then the other thing is if they need let me just give you this. So there's like 3 basic things that we need to make sure, 3 boxes we got to check to make sure this deal will fit. Okay. First off, they got to have equity, right? And my rule of thumb is, and we can work off the ARV, right? Once the house is all fixed up, what is that number? And as long as we're typically 50% or less than that, the deal in terms of their debt, right? That doesn't mean I'm buying it. Okay. Let's give real numbers. If the house is worth 400,000 fixed up, right? As long as they owe 200,000 or less, it typically will work. That's enough equity, all right? It'll still work a little bit higher, but that's a kind of a good rule of thumb. Right now, I'm not saying that I got to go buy the house for 200,000, right? I'm saying that that has to be their debt. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to take over that loan at 200,000, okay?
Okay.
And
Subject
then I'm
to.
going to go subject to. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And very, very, very important, Mike. The difference, if people know what a novation is, the big difference between this and novation is we're going to change the deed, okay? This is meant for deals where you're actually going to go in and bring some serious value to the house, right? Like, don't do this if you're just going in and putting in like a clean out, a trash out, and relisting it, right? Go do a novation, right? That's a better, more efficient way. I mean, unless the seller is going to give you the deed just to go clean it out, but I want to bring value to that seller, right? So, but if I'm going to go put in, so that same scenario, house is worth 400, they owe 200. Well, I'm going to go put in like $70,000 of renovations. But what I do is I say, when we sell this house, first off, first position lien, that the existing loan has to get paid no matter what first. Next, that $70,000 rehab has got to pay next. And that's where I make sure I get paid after the loan, right? But let's just think about that. Now we're at 270,000 of like total cost. So if I'm looking at my math, let's just do 270 divided by 400. Let's look at that ratio. 270 divided by 400. You're at 67%, right? So now I'm at a pretty comfortable, like I've got a lot of cushion built in. Okay. So if I could sell that house for 67% on the dollar and I would still get paid back. All right. But after what I tell my seller though, is like, okay, so that same scenario, in theory, let's say it's $30,000 of closing cost to make it real easy. So now we're up to 300,000 of cost. I'll tell my seller that if we sell it for 400, there's 100K of profit. I'll say, hey, you know what, Mr. Seller, you're going to get 90% of that. I only need 10% because something I didn't tell you is I'm going to build in some cushion into my rehab budget, right?
Sure.
Because I want to make sure that things, we all know, right? Things are going to pop up. But
Yep.
B, I just say, I want to lock in my profit, right? And I would rather, like, even if I don't have to go make 100K on a flip, which I possibly could, I would rather take 50K locked in that I know I'm going to get and build it into my rehab versus
Mhm.
on the, does that make sense? So in that, I mean, on that same scenario, it's going to be difficult if it's a 70K rehab to build in 50K of profit, but I've done it before.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
it's a $50,000, if my cost is 50K, charging 100K for the whole thing, if they've got enough equity, it could typically make sense, right? And again, that's why
Yeah.
on the back end, people are typically like, well, what do you do, Casey? Do you 50-50? I am typically giving like 90, maybe 85% to the seller, right? Because I want to make sure I
Mm,
got to make sure this makes sense to them, right? But again, I build in my profit on the rehab and then we profit share with them on the back end. It's a lot
gotcha.
easier when you got a spreadsheet, but hopefully you could kind of follow the numbers.
And then, like, what are the tiers? If it sells for more, does more go to you, or does more go to them typically? Like
Yeah,
percentage
to them,
wise.
right? So that's
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, percentage is locked, right? So I'll say,
Okay.
let's say on that same deal I just gave you, it's a 90% profit share. So if we sell for 400K, there was 100K of profit. They got 90,000. I got 10. All right. But again, remember,
Yep.
I already got say 30 or 40 on the fix it flip. Now let's
Yep.
say that house sold for 450. Now let's say we made 150. They got 90% of 150. And that's how I get them excited. Because again, as you know, Mike, right? When you talk to a seller, they're always excited. They can always tell you what their neighbor sold for and how much they think their house is worth. But I'm
Yep.
like, so it's not hard to like get them excited about like, hey, again, I'm very, very, very full disclosure of like, there's no guarantee we're going to sell this for it. But you're right. Your neighbor's house sold for 450. We might get 450. And if we do, look what you make. Right. And that's what I kind of show them the different scenarios.
So the tiers are just showing them the scenarios. It doesn't affect the percentage that they're getting.
That's
It's
right.
not tiered. Interesting.
Bingo.
Okay.
I just want to show them like a couple different scenarios because again, like, hey, I think on the low end you make this, but if things go well, this is what I think you make. And when they compare that with what they could get right now in a cash offer, they're like, well, wait. So if I wait 3 to 4 or 5 months, I'm gonna make an extra 50K. Like, why would I not do that?
And you're
You know what I
paying
mean?
in the meantime because you're taking something who you're making the payments for them, so that
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
taken off their plate. Okay.
exactly. So
In-
yeah, I didn't finish the beginning. So right, they need equity, which I said
Yep.
about 50%, and they need time, right? This doesn't work if they've got to sell this house and buy their next one in a month and they're like they've already got their second house contingent.
Yep.
It's not going to work there, right? So again, equity, time, and then just somewhere to go. But that's typically pretty easy to solve, right? And
Yeah.
even if like I've done it too, where like, hey, I've done this many, many times where like, hey, I need help with moving and I need help with my first month's rent, like whatever they need, right? Or maybe they even got to pay some bills, right? I've done them. I mean, I've seen it pretty often where we'll give them like 20,000 up front, but then the majority of the rest comes when we sell it.
Gotcha. Like at closing. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're always playing the back end. I mean, sometimes you're giving them a little bit to take care of what they need, but typically you're closing at their mortgage payoff price, and they're getting paid 4 or 6 months later, whatever it is, when you sell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So get two closings, right? I closed on the front end.
Yeah.
Um, they get that if it's in that scenario, they get 20,000. All right. Now we change the deed. So again, very important. I'm going to say that again. We change the deed. So now if I'm going to go put 70,000 into a house, I'm going to make sure I'm on the deed and I'm not relying upon a novation contract. And that's
Mhm.
one of the other reasons why I started this was in addition to what I talked to earlier about like the risk of a fix and flip. The other thing is like, if you're going to go put, my threshold with a novation is typically about $10,000. Like if I got to go do more than just like clean up and some paint and touch ups, like I'm going to go change the deed. And so was a solution. All right, now we change the deed, we fix it up, and we give them a promissory note, right? I'll give them something so they know, hey, we're not just a handshake or an email or whatever. We give them a written promissory note that spells out the exact profit share. So that way, once we fixed it up, we're under contract, we're going through the title work, about to close. we'll share that promissory note, and then that's when they get paid on the back end.
Gotcha. Okay. So did they sign that? They sign that promissory note at when the closing, when they sell the first closing.
Bingo. Yep.
So
Love
they
it.
feel like I've got something,
Oh yeah,
legitimate in place here. Yeah.
exactly. Oh yeah, and it's for everybody, right? It discloses
Yeah.
us too, where we mention, hey, this is the fixed cost for the rehab. There is no guarantees your house sells for this. That way, nobody could be like, oh, I thought you were going to get me this. It's like we don't know, but we definitely think we can, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
part of it.
So who are you seeing as like, I mean, I get the three things that you're looking for, right? But I guess what's
Mhm.
like the typical seller profile that you find this like goes for this instead of going for the cash offer?
Yeah. I mean, a really quick one, if your guys are pulling lists and doing data and want to like really narrow in, you could just go look for 50% equity or greater, which is a really easy filter to pull most places. And
Mhm.
then the years of ownership, right? Just, I mean, typically, because that's when you're going to find these houses that need to be renovated, right?
Mm,
Because I would say at least 10 plus years of ownership and has equity, and you're going to find a bunch of these deals because and you got to go find a market that's seen some appreciation, right? Like it's probably not going to be as effective in the Midwest where you haven't seen quite as many swings, but in some of
yeah.
these cities where values have gone up quite a bit, there's a lot of sellers that like their house needs a bunch of work, but there's also a lot of like, I mean, it kind of cuts both ways, right? So I mean, an easy age or target demographic is older people, right? They've been in their house for a long time. Their house is in a good neighborhood, right? It's got good value, but they haven't touched it in 20 years, right? And
Hmm.
nor do they want to go find a contractor. So that one all day. And they also don't
Mm.
need that the elderly person doesn't need all their money right now. So they're happy to hang in there. And then I just love it too, right, Mike? Then I don't have to like because they all wholesalers get a bad rap, right, for taking advantage of the old lady, right, going and getting grandma to sell her house for pennies on the dollar, right? But now I don't have to do that. I'm like, hey, um, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, like here is your chance to make the full potential in your property, right? But I know you don't want to go renovate it. You don't want to go do all these improvements that have been needed for the last 20 years. Like, let us go do
Mm.
it for you. But they've got equity, right? So that's the biggest thing. Is like years of ownership and equity, you're going to hit it.
So I know you guys are closing a lot on the phone. So tell me, obviously, you can go on what the seller says for setting that renovation price, but how are you really making? I mean, I guess you could always you go check it out after, but tell me how that works. Like if you're not seeing their house yet, and you're going to put this number on the contract, agreement, and you're like, well, maybe you go there, it's maybe a lot worse than you guys talked about.
Oh yeah,
How far are you going
and
in
it.
the process before you're signing it up?
Oh man, Mike, good question. It's like you've been sitting in our meetings the last couple of years, right? We've gone back and forth on this, and what we've landed on is like we try to get pictures, right? Like again, we're going to take their word. Like, hey, what is the condition? Send me pictures, right? Because we're going to estimate this. I actually built this cool ChatGPT template because I do so many fix it flips, and now I
Ah,
know the cost of things to where
yeah.
my acquisition guys can go plug in new roof, cosmetics, whatever, blah blah blah. They could feed it in there, get an estimate, right? And at that point, we'll go and we'll try to get under contract. But again, we've got an inspection period, and we're very upfront. Be like, hey, again, we've got to go do inspections. We've got to go see this to make sure. Again, we're not going and saying, hey, this is locked in cash offer, sight unseen, right? We're like, hey,
Mhm.
this is what I'm estimating. And yeah, it does happen. Like we just, right now, we might have to go renegotiate on this one where, man, we just like this lady just needed to get rid of it. She's got all this drug and issues. And it's been, and she was stuck in, she couldn't even get them evicted, right? So we helped them get evicted, but we just told her, we're like, hey, for us to go through and like help you get this, we'll help you with the eviction, right? We'll help you don't live in this town. I know this is a headache. Like, let me, because at the end of the day, right, Mike, we're just trying to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
This lady is out of town. She's got this house. Tenants won't pay. She's getting calls from the cops, right? We're like, so I'm like, hey, Becky, we got to get a contract because I'm not going to go do all this and not be under contract. But once
Yeah.
we get under contract, we got to get in there and we got to actually see what we're working with, but we can't see it now. So now that we've got in there and my trash out guy's like, oh my gosh, there's needles and there's all this crap
Oh,
and all this, like they've been doing a lot of stuff and they're like, okay, all right, Becky, I got to get that cleared out and I got to get my contractor. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm going to get you the most, I'm going to get you more than anyone else can if we do it this way. Because that's the other thing about the revive method is like, we could always pay more than the cash buyers, right? We just got
Sure.
to,
Yeah.
they just got to take some time, right?
Yeah. What are the pitfalls you see of people who try this and maybe I know one of them obviously would not be getting the deed in your name, but what other mistakes do you see people make when they try this method that people should look out for?
Man, I'll tell you one I've lived and still living, finishing it up. But we used to, and I still think there are situations where you should do this, but we just do a promissory note. Okay.
Hmm.
We used to do a promissory note and a mortgage to just because again, I just want to secure them and I want to help them and I want to do my best to look out for the seller as well. Well, the problem is some of these people are not the most stable people, right? And when you give them a mortgage, so here's the situation. I got a property out of state and they didn't leave the house. And it was a husband and wife and divorce and wife was ready to be done. Husband wouldn't leave. And anyway, we've spent like 6 months, same issues, right? It's drugs, right? These people are on drugs, completely irrational. So I had to go through the process of evicting them. All right. And it's only coming out of their check, right? It's just costing them more money because the holding
Sure.
costs are built in, right? But here's the brown side is we gave them a mortgage. So once it's all said and done, I got to now go through the headache of getting this guy to go sign a mortgage release. The same guy had to go evict from a sheriff and go through all these things, right? So I've learned that we don't have a mortgage sign. I'm like, I'm going to do everything above board. I'm going to sign a promissory note. So we know what we're both accountable for, but I don't want to have to rely upon that person. I mean, it's the same thing too when you get like a third party consent on a property, right? You're like, hey, if I got to get your payoff and you freaking ghost me and disappear, like I want to be able to go get what I need. So that's one big one is like, I don't sign a mortgage unless, I mean, if it was a really sophisticated person and they're just like, I need some security, I actually haven't had to do that yet, but my thought is I would go through an escrow company and just make sure it was like pre-signed. That way I didn't have to go through some like lawsuit to get him to sign.
Sure.
So that's the
Like
biggest one. And
have the mortgage release pre-signed and held in escrow.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And when we hold up our end, it's sitting there waiting for us, not having to go just deal with some disgruntled person who's been squatting. Right. So that's one big one. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. And just handling the just making sure the tenants are out, right? We do just see like you don't want to do this. You don't want to close this thing and let them stay in the house. And that's the only times. I mean, it's really just by contractors. They just we had one lady that had cats because you're just trying to help people, right? And you're trying to help them solve their problem. She's like, can my cats stay at the house? Can they just stay in the garage? I'm like, I mean, you don't know me yet, Mike, but I'm like, oh, right. I want to help this lady. Like, why? The cats could stay in the garage. We're just going to renovate the house, right? But turns out the contractor's calling me like 3 weeks into the project, be like, Casey, these cats, like they're all over the place. They keep sneaking into the house. I got a call. Oh man, this is another long story, but we like fought that cat. The cat got back into the house and he got into the ductwork because the ductwork was all open and we couldn't get it out. It's a story of like a cat literally having 9 lives. And we could not get it out of the ductwork. And then we couldn't lay carpet because we knew as soon as we laid carpet, he'd come out of there and just go destroy our carpet. So anyway, having a clean pet from your seller is another best practice if you can.
So you don't know post occupancies on these deals.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's just it can muddy the water. Which my COO, my project manager would be like, they would have never went for it anyway. But I believe in people. And it's sometimes that's what you got to do to get the deal done. Like, right. You got to help. Yeah. We're like, I'm going to say it again. We're here to help people solve problems, right?
Yeah.
Their animals or their pets are important.
What other mistakes do you see people make?
I would say maybe even just how you finance it, right? Like it's the really cool thing is, okay, well, first off, you just got to buy a deal with equity, right? This isn't going to work if you're buying a house at like 70 or 80% of the value, right? You want to make sure they've got good equity. So if you find a property with equity, you're going to be fine. Because here's the cool part is now when you go to raise capital or go to like, because I try to keep all my cash in my business. And if I'm going to go do a fix and flip, I want to use a PML or my fund or use some other outsider or hard money lender, whatever it is, right? But now think about this. Let's go back to that same deal Um, the loan amount was 200. We put 70,000 into it. Our
Mm-hmm.
our loan to value, right? I still got to hear my phone, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
67%, right? And I see a lot of our deals are like 60 or 50% of ARV. So
Yeah.
now when you go to your private money lender, they're stoked, right? Because their threshold is maybe 75 or 70%, right? So now you could fund it. And
And
yeah,
they're
I
just
guess
funding
I
the
wouldn't
rehab
say,
for you in that case. Yeah. Okay.
yep. Yeah. So exactly. So they'll go fund in second position. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't like second position, but I honestly that's a whole nother business model, another discussion too. Like I think if you underwrite correctly, second position can be just fine, especially if again, you got to make sure your percentage is low enough and there's equity.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that would probably be again, I wouldn't say people have made that mistake, but I think it's important to highlight that you could really structure a deal well for your lender and get favorable terms and make the deal cash flow better, right? Like you don't have to go get a hard money lender with 15% and 3 points and all that, right? Like I just take over the loan sub two and then I underwrite it properly. I bring in a PML and that deals that situation for 70,000. I pay them
Mm-hmm.
12% and they're
Yep.
stoked, right? They're lending at 12%. They're making 12% on a deal that has over 30% equity, right? So if they had to take that house back, they're going to make more money, you know?
Yeah. Tell me how you're like how are you building in like, all the closing costs, all the realtor fees, all that when you're dealing with the seller? Is that stuff that gets paid like up? Yeah, just tell me about how you're structuring it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easy answer. It's all part of that spreadsheet, right? So
Okay.
very top line is loan amount. Next line is if I'm giving them any money up front. All right. I put that in the next line. And I'll be happy if any of your listeners want to see our template, more than happy to share it. Right. But then after that, we go into closing costs. Right. So I
Uh-huh.
estimate, well, again, it's just a function. I know what my agent fees are going to be. And I know roughly in Wyoming what the percentage of closing costs. So I just factor that in. That's a known variable. And then I do holding costs too. Right. So I'll estimate utilities. I'll know their mortgage payment. So I work all those into the math. And that way, again, the seller sees it all there. So they know it's very transparent, even
Yeah.
down to the rehab, right? Ooh, there you go. That's back. You asked me the question earlier. Maybe a mistake you can make is, or maybe just a hurdle people could run into is people are like, wait, oh, wait, the rehab is 100,000. That seems really high. Well, first off, I'm like, have you got a bid lately from these contractors? Like prices have gone up,
Yeah.
right? And the other big difference is I'm going to move fast, right? I'm going to come in and I'm going to start your project versus go ask that GC when he's going to, well, he might tell you he's going to get in there in a couple of months, but like when's he actually going to fit in your project? When's he going to finish it? So I'm like, this is
Yeah.
when we're going to finish. So back to sort of the transparency part, I'm like, hey, this is my cost. All right. I've got profit margin. I'm not doing this. I've got employees and I've got a family to feed. So I've got profit margin in there. And I tell them I've got cushion, right? And I just tell them it's all built in there, right? So that way they know all the numbers and see it all
Mhm.
together.
And then are you building in your loan interest anywhere on the renovation that you're
Ooh,
paying and
on
on their
the
loan that you're paying as well? Or like where does that get factored in?
typically, no, I'll typically, that'll sort of be part of my cost, right? Sort of my fees. So
Okay.
that eats into my profit. I do not, um, it's a good point. There are some deals I've done it, right? Where like if it
Yeah.
was a longer term one, but yeah, typically that's just a fee that I'm gonna cover on our side.
Gotcha. So you kind of build that into your reno projection
Yeah,
slash profit field. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
But luckily, it's not a huge number, right? Like typically, again,
Yeah.
that one scenario, like you're buying it, yeah, it's only 70,000 at 12% or 50,000, right? They're just funding the
Right.
rehab.
Yeah. You're paying $500 a month or something for interest. Yeah. And then their
Yeah.
loan payment too.
Yeah. Oh, and you'll like this too, Mike. The other thing is, if you're buying a good enough deal, I'll overfund it to where now I could pay my acquisition company an assignment fee or an acquisition fee, right? So if I'm buying it like 50 cents on the dollar and I've already got my profit margin built into my rehab, I'll actually go overfund it with the PML. That way I could pay my people now, right? Versus them having to wait 3 or 4 months.
Sure. Yeah.
You're going to pay some
Interesting.
interest, right? But it
Yeah.
depends. It's funny. I talked to another guy who's like just wholesaling and they're just like got this cash machine, right? But when you're fixing and flipping, like liquidity is key.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Especially when the market starts to slow down.
Yeah.
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 Interesting. What else should people know if they're thinking about maybe trying out this method with some deals that maybe haven't worked for a cash offer?
Yeah. So I think, Mike, I would say don't go it alone your first one, right? Like this is
Mm,
I know I've been, and we've gone pretty deep. You've asked some really good questions, right? What I recommend is like if you guys, because I think people are going to listen to this today and they're going to be like, and I hear this all the time whenever I present on it. They're like, oh my gosh, I could have done that on this seller. Like that was their exact situation. If I would have known, if I would have, and a lot of times people are already thinking of this in their head, but they just don't have a structure for it. Right. So I would say if you got one of those, like reach out and I'll
mhm.
help. Like even if we got a partner, if I got to do the first one and just show you, right? But I would not, I mean, you could do it on your own, right? Like you could take with what I'm saying and just go for it. But if you do that, please consult your attorney, right? Make sure you understand how your state, because every state is so different, right?
Sure.
So go
Yeah.
understand, because I've had my attorney review all our contracts, all our disclaimers, right? Because that's the first thing that comes up when some people hear this or have more of the kind of skeptical attorney mind. They're like, wait, but what about this? This sounds like a good way to get sued. But it's like, well, again, you got to disclose, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
if you were to not go tell the seller and say, hey, I'm going to go sell your house for 400K and you're going to get this much and we're all going to be happy. And then you don't get there. I mean, yeah, you're opening yourself up. But again, that's why I'm
Mhm.
really careful. I make like, there's literally a line that they initial that has, hey, there is no guarantee this house sells for this. I might not make anything, right? I literally make them initial that. So what I
Yeah.
would tell people is like, go partner with somebody on the first one, learn the process just like anything. And then if you're ready after the first one and you feel comfortable, go for it. Right. But
Yeah.
until then, yeah, have a partner.
Outside of like the three characteristics you mentioned, right? That a house, the deal needs to have to make sense to do this. Is there anything that the deal can absolutely not have that would just like this strategy doesn't make sense besides like time and the other things that you mentioned?
Yeah. Um, I used to say free and clear, but free and clear still works. It's actually even easier if it's free and clear. But you got to put in some sort of number for the purchase price, which that's where it gets kind of tricky. Because if it's free and
Uh,
clear, what I try to do is give them some money up front. So, for example, I'm going to
sure.
buy it for 10,000. That way, I give you some money up front, and then you get the rest of it on the back end. Because you got to think about your purchase prices. Usually, it's the loan amount plus whatever you give them up front. But if there's
Mhm.
no loan amount, um, but again, I actually think I love the free and clear ones. Because here's what the other cool thing about free and clear is now when I go to my PML, I actually don't even go to a PML. I go to a bank. So let's go full circle on this conversation. I talked about small
Yeah.
banks. Now, if I've got a free and clear house, I forget the private money lender and 12%. We're just going to go borrow from a bank at 7,
Yeah.
right? And do it that way.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
But I'm trying to think of any other ones, kind of showstoppers. As long as, like we say, as long as they got somewhere to go, they got time, and they got
Mhm.
equity, then you're in good shape, right? I mean, maybe another one would be they got to have motivation. I mean,
Sure.
this should be an obvious one, but
Yeah.
like if they could just go sell it on the open market, I mean, you're not going to be the best option. Plus, they probably wouldn't wait, right? So you got to find somebody who's got some sort of pain, right? And the pain could be they don't want to, and the pain the majority of the time is they don't want to deal with renovating their house, and they want the most money they can,
Mhm.
right? And which I've just, and you guys might think as I was walking through this, like I mentioned it earlier, that I think most people are going to be like light bulb. I know that situation. I've seen it. But if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, you will, because there's so many people who have houses that haven't been renovated. And especially right now, right? Where like people are bringing me deals that I could go buy with cash and fix and flip. But as you mentioned, right, the market's a little bit not as liquid. Things aren't moving fast. Cash people aren't paying as much for cash. Or if they are, I mean, if you're smart and you're a cash buyer right now, you're buying at a big discount and you're being
Yeah.
selective. Right now, there are still some people that are more aggressive, or maybe they're just a little more reckless and don't have the experience, right? But so the reason I'm bringing this up is as you're talking to your seller, you're like, right now is not a good time to fire, just to be able to liquidate that house, right? But this strategy is going to allow you to go maximize the value, because now we can open it up the entire market, the full retail market, because it's all fixed up.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting strategy because sometimes you run into that seller I mean, we do a bunch of strategies, novation stuff, and a lot of cash buys. Sometimes you run into the seller who, I mean, their house is really rough, right? I mean, it's in really rough shape, but they don't want to accept a cash price that makes sense because they have the time. It's usually because they have the time,
Yeah.
but then they don't end up really being able to sell it, and they just drag it out because
Yeah.
they're not willing to take any of the cash offers for 100 grand that come along. So I do think this is like an interesting middle ground where that person would be like, oh, well, I can get part of the upside here potentially, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing you think about is when they're listed properties, and this is a really good hack, right? You don't actually necessarily have to
Ah,
go direct to seller to do this. Go to the listed properties that are sitting and go to that agent. Well, there's two parts to this thing. So first part is go to the agent and be like, hey, I would love to buy this. I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to pay the seller on the back end, and you just got to kind of walk them through it. But I'm like, but if they understand it's an easy pitch because now that house that, let's go back to my one example where they owe 200, put 70 into it or 400. That same house maybe as is sitting at 250, right? Can't
mm,
sell. I'm like, hey, why don't you let me go fix this up? Me put in the money, and then you could still list it, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, and you're going to get now 6% or 3% of the 400K, not that 250 you were trying to get,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's part one. And then I thought about this too over the last like years of doing this. I'm like, a lot of times these houses are sitting. And so to your point, that buyer who's got a house that needs a lot of work, but he doesn't want the cash offer, he could go list it, but they just take longer to sell. So it's almost like if you were to just go this route from day one, by the time, I mean, a lot of these projects we get in and out with the construction in 30 to 60 days, right? So by the
yeah,
time you would have probably just sat on the market trying to find the right investor buyer anyway. Why not just go fix it up to where now you've got all the buyers looking at you? And a lot of times I really need to do a case study or some like data and show them, be like, you're going to probably actually sell your house faster and for more money if you just go this route from the start.
yeah. What percentage of deals do you do with this method versus any of the other exit strategies that you do?
And yeah, another good question, which might surprise you, but I would say like probably close to 90, if not 80% of our deals we're doing this way. Just
Really?
because like and especially right now, it's like people, my acquisition guys bring me these deals and I'm like, did you ask them about Revive? They're like, yeah, I asked them, Casey. They don't want to do that. And then I'm like, okay. So we end up locking it up for cash. And then we get into the underwriting and get into inspections and like we find out the rehab's more and the ARV's less. I'm like, all right, guess what? We got to go back to them and offer Revive because like I'm not taking the risk on this fix and flip right now in this market. It's like we don't have to. And I've just you're probably the same, Mike, right? We've lost enough money on these fix and flips over the years where it's like it's not worth the risk. So I'm like, anytime I can see them side by side, I'm always going to I will take the 50K locked in profit on a Revive method versus the 100K that who knows, right? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like I want to lock it in. And so that's why I'm always pushing our sales guys, our deal flow, everything, right? And if somebody brings me a deal, for example, so I'll buy anywhere in Wyoming, Montana all day,
mhm,
every day. But if somebody's going to bring me something somewhere in a decent market that I believe and has strong, good drivers, but I don't know the market, I'm not probably not going to touch a cash fix it flip. But if I could do
yeah,
the Revive method, I can mitigate a lot of risk. And heck yeah, I'll look at a deal anywhere if it's a Revive method.
yeah, yeah. 100%. You take a lot. I mean, if you're walking in the door with buying at 50% equity,
Mm-hmm.
you're totally taking a lot of risk off the table.
Yep.
I know you mentioned before, like, one way that you got people who think more creatively is by kind of pulling people from, the Pace Morby group or program that you're in. But do you do any? I've thought of this too. Like, I've got salespeople. Like, how do I teach them these other ways? Like you said, I've got 10 ways to structure a deal spinning in my head, right? But kind of bringing on a salesperson, it can be a challenge there. So, do you guys do any like additional training to get them up to speed, or are they kind of already there because they've already gone through Pace's stuff, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, I've tried to build out a good library of me negotiating enough deals over the years and
Huh.
just using Loom. Honestly, Loom is one of my favorite tools to like do like I used to do. I haven't done this as much lately, but years ago, I would actually listen to my sales guys calls and I would listen to
Mhm.
it on Loom and then I would play it and I would listen to it and I'd give feedback, and I play it, listen to it, give feedback. So I did some coaching there, and now I've
Yeah.
got a recording of that so they could see it, and they can also listen to it on like 2x speed, which is cool. So that's been one of training them. And then, man, that's this biggest one you'd probably guess is AI, right? I've been like, okay, here's all my thoughts. Here's like all these deals and here's all these numbers, starting to train the chat GPT to be like, hey, so now I've got like 3 iterations where like I've got my revive method one for fix and flip, but it also always gives a cash offer component. And then I've got a buy and hold one. And I've even got one for co-living. And then actually I lied. I got 4. My 4th one is my rehab estimator, right? So I've
Okay.
just been like, it's got enough data, and I've just kind of, it literally wasn't rocket science. I just played around with chat GPT and created a custom GPT and fed it all my inputs. And now my team they could use that to plug things in to at least get pretty dang close.
And that's like giving them like how to structure the deal or what they can offer, or is it even telling them which options they have with this deal?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of all of that. It'll give
Okay.
them numbers to where they can start to put in their offer. And the other cool thing is it'll give feedback, because the other reason I built it was I wanted to share with other people. So the other cool thing about the Sub 2 and Pace Mortgage community is there's so many people, brand new people, who just want a bird dog. They just want to find deals, but the problem is they just go like, they call like whatever daisy chaining deals, or they'll just go find some Facebook marketplace deal or another
Yeah.
wholesaler list, right? They're just sending you this crap that's like not really a deal, but I still like, I want to help them and I want to coach them. So that's why I built out that ChatGPT model. Like, hey, just go plug that deal into this model. And even if they don't have everything, it's really good about making assumptions. Like if maybe they don't know the seller's mortgage payment or the seller's loan amount or some other, or maybe even ARV, like my ChatGPT is built to guide them and help them like figure out those numbers.
That's cool.
And that
Yeah.
will
So
give them
then,
feedback.
what was that? Sorry.
Oh yeah, it'll give them feedback and it'll help them along the way to where if like say it doesn't work, it'll say, well, hey, did you try this? Maybe if you drop down this, maybe if you offered them a seller finance, right? So that to kind of answer your question, it's built in. I built in some logic to where it can start to coach them through, well, hey, try this or adjust this, pull this lever,
Yep. Very cool. You mentioned one thing that you, in every market or sub-market you're in, you find like your go-to real estate agent there. How do you go about finding and selecting that person?
Oh, yes. That is an art for sure. Um, and one to start out, like if I were telling somebody to start out, it's definitely going to be harder. Well, I'll give you the easy answer once you've experienced, right? My best way now is I go find somebody. The shortcut by far is a referral, right? If you know somebody, just start talking to other investors, figure out who the investor agent is. That's always going to be your best bet. The problem is once you find that person, are they going to give you the time? Because if they're good, they're busy, right?
Yeah.
So if once you get a reputation going and you got enough volume, now you can attract those busier people, which now I do. So I'll go attack like go approach or maybe hunt down the best one, and then I'll go explain what we're doing. But now I've just taken time of like building testimonials and referrals from the current people I work with. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been the most powerful one. So once like you got one or two, now I'm just like, hey, go talk to Gene. He's been working with me for years, because they'll be skeptical. They're like, oh man, another investor who's going to sell me on doing all these deals and he's going to give me all these listings and then he's just going to not do any deals with me, right? And I'm going to go spend all this time. So having that credibility so where they could talk to somebody helps a ton. But if you're just trying to find the first one, yeah, if you can't get a referral, you might just kind of have to take a flyer, right? And just be like, I think it is, I really like finding the young, sort of hungry agents that want to go out there, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to typically be able to go find the top producer in the market, right? And that's been doing it forever. But if you want to, but what you could do, ideally, you go find one of their junior people, right? And get them to
Mm-hmm.
go do it and sell them on the vision and get them to go work. But I think that would be the best part of it. But I mean, I'm telling you, you talk to 10 agents, like you're going to say 9 of them aren't going to be a good fit for what we're trying to do or what you're trying to explain to them. Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is of the 10 of them you interview, I would argue also 8 or 9 of them are going to say, yeah, I could do that. Heck yeah, sign me
Sure.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But there's really probably only one that can actually do it. So I would vet them and again, referrals. But I'll just tell you this, most investors in these other markets, they'll know who these people are, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, that guy actually knows what he's doing. So referrals.
Yep. For sure. Well, we're getting close to the end here. There's always two questions I like to ask at the end of the show. And the first is, what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation that you have ever experienced in a real estate deal?
All right, man. So many of them. I've walked a lot of wild houses, seen a lot of crazy situations, which I might have went with the cat one. The cat one was pretty uncomfortable. You know what? I'm going to go with that one because the reason it was so uncomfortable was I told her again at closing, she's like, Casey, can I keep my cats at the house? And I'm like, yeah, keep them in the garage. We'll make it work. Right. But then it gets really uncomfortable because my GC calls me. He's like, Casey, we've got to get rid of the cats. Like my guys are about to call animal services to come pick up the cats. Like we can't deal with these cats. They're like squalling and they're just stuck in the garage and this isn't working. Right. And then I got to go back and call her and be like, all right, the cat's got to go. What are we going to do? How are we going to work this out? And she's like, well, I don't have anywhere to put them and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, they finally just got called and went down to the shelter. But it was like, just like I'm not getting paid enough to solve cat problems for this lady. Right.
Gotcha. Well, the second question I always ask is, if you could go back in time, give yourself one piece of advice when you were looking for that first real estate deal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Yep. Without a doubt, I would tell myself, don't try to go figure it out all by yourself. Right. And don't go learn all the lessons the hard way, like you probably did as well, Mike. And I know I have. I could figure this out. I could do it. But there's also other people who are like, no way. Like they don't even take action. But I would say for the action takers out there, be cautious though, right? Like you can even half of the deal, even if you make 10% of the deal and someone else does it and being able to leverage their experience, leverage their credibility. Like, yes, you got to go a little bit slower to start, but man, the acceleration you're going to have after that is just so powerful. And I'm just telling you, man, you're going to make way more money. You're going to get way better experience and yeah, go learn. And you're also kind of learning on somebody else's dime in a way, right? Let somebody else go fund the deal versus you funding it. Because I just think so many people, Mike, go and do this and they think they can do it and they can, but they go through the same hurdles me and you did, and then they never get back to it. It like literally sinks them because it's always a challenge. And if you're not resilient and you haven't built up enough liquidity, and a lot of times it's one and done. So I would say, don't be one and done. Go find a partner, do one with them, and then you can do more.
Yeah. I think that's a great piece of advice. Casey, if people want to reach out to you after the show, maybe they want that spreadsheet, maybe they have a deal to send you, or maybe they're interested in coming to your Revive Summit, how can they go about getting in touch with you?
Yes. So you guys could see probably my Instagram and Facebook handles. Real easy to find me there at Casey Gregerson. Also on YouTube, I would say whatever platform you guys are at, I'm real easy to find. At the moment, I'm the only Casey Gregerson if you spell it with all E's. So reach out to me, guys. Send me a DM, whatever, however you guys like to communicate. I'll tell you what, if you guys just want to text me, I'll give you my number because I would love to have you guys at my Revive Summit. I've got pointing behind me. I got a couple of images from our banners just came in, right? We're getting ready for our October Revive Summit here in Houston, Texas. So if that's someone's interested in, just text me. I would love to be able to invite you, come down, because we didn't talk about it much today, but in a nutshell, my big Mount Everest goal is to help 100 families achieve financial freedom, right? I said it earlier, but I want 100 families to be able to choose their family over work, right? I built it. I was able to do that for myself, but I want to give that same optionality to other people. So text me 307 317 2494. And I'd love to help you guys out.
Cool. Well, awesome, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, you bet, Mike. Appreciate you.